Hello, and welcome to the Euro What from WhatElseIsOn.tv. I'm Mike McComb, and I'm here today with fellow Eurovision News and Entertainment Research Division Specialist, Ben Smith. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Mike.
How's it going?
It is good. Isn't there supposed to be one more of us?
Yeah, Ryan wasn't able to join us this week, but that's okay. We're kind of in a in-between period right now as we go from selection season to what I like to call wild speculation season as we get ready for the big show in May.
Yes. As for now, it's just kind of Eurovision limbo time, where there's a bunch of stuff happening, but it's not necessarily stuff that's relevant to us. But in terms of what does happen now, we're going to just start with, so Eurovision this year is on Tuesday, May 8th and Thursday, May 10th. Those are the semifinals, and Saturday, May 12th for the big show. So right now that we've picked everybody, all those artists are off doing their promo, whether that's radio, whether that's concerts, which are happening this year in Riga, Latvia, Israel, the London Eurovision party, and then Eurovision in concert, which I think is... Do you know where that is?
I believe that's in Amsterdam.
Yeah, I was about to say, I thought it was in Amsterdam. We are just right around the corner from the wild speculation time for fan sites and know-it-all podcasts like ourselves. One other note is that if you do want to get tickets to Eurovision, your last chance to do that is on April 5th.
Yes, I believe those go on sale at 5 a.m. Eastern on Thursday, April 5th. It's an all-nighter type situation.
That feels more like a wake-up early situation to me.
Yeah, well, the first time... So this is like the fourth wave of tickets that are going to be going on sale. For the first wave, I didn't realize that when you log into the ticket selling system, that it doesn't matter what order you log in, you just get a random number assigned to you. So I did pull an all-nighter the first wave and ended up in like 27,000th in line for, I think there were only maybe 2,000 tickets for sale.
Ooh,
they were the real primo tickets. So I learned my lesson for waves 2 and 3. Set your alarm 15 minutes before sale time, get on the website and cross your fingers, and good luck to everyone. So
okay, I think that covers it for like what actually is happening next before we get to the big shows in May. Is there anything exciting happening in the world of Eurovision news, Mike?
I don't know if I would call this exciting news, but over the weekend, news came out that Lys Assia, who won the very first Eurovision Song Contest in 1956, has passed away. She was 94 years old, and she is known as like the Grand Dame of Eurovision. She actually competed for Switzerland a handful of times. She competed in the first 3 contests, winning the first one, tying for 8th out of 10 in 1957, but then becoming the runner-up in the 1958 edition.
So like a storied history, like that's like the first 3 in a row.
Yeah. And she has always been a fixture of Eurovision. She even tried competing for Switzerland pretty recently. In 2012, she made it to the Swiss national final, placed 8th out of 14th for that one. But the following year, she tried to submit a song, and unfortunately that one didn't make it to the national final process. But yeah, like she was a diehard for Eurovision.
Well, up until the end.
Yeah, she will be missed. We do have a post from earlier this year when we were kind of doing a Throwback Thursday type thing to the very first entry. So we'll have a link to that post and her winning song Refrain from 1956 in the show notes. Kind of along that theme, and this is a theme that we had been working before the news dropped this weekend, that we would use this week to kind of check in on the songs that got away in the 2018 selection season.
Exactly, like a nice little palate cleanser before we go into another round of deep, hard analysis.
So there were close to, I think, 700 songs that were up for public consideration across all of the national finals and selection series and everything. And only 43 songs will be making it to the Eurovision stage. But there were some that were still pretty good that will probably be in our Spotify playlists from now until I don't know when. So
from now until Spotify America realizes that there's a very small window of people listening to these and takes them off.
Yeah, although, like, I was listening to my Discovery this morning, and my algorithm's going to be baffling to anybody who happens to stumble upon my account. So,
oh yeah. Like, I have a playlist that I update every couple of weeks or so with just like a range of what I am listening to, which that occasionally gets thrown up on Twitter. Mostly, it just has 0 followers, so nobody's actually paying attention except me. But Spotify's getting very good at noticing, hey, I noticed that you put 2 entries from the Swedish final on here. Would you like 7 more of them? And it's like, no, Spotify, I picked the 2 I liked.
And assuming that I wouldn't already know about those other 7. Come on, Spotify.
Spotify, you have the data. You know what's going on.
Ben, do you want to get us started on some of your...
On stuff that I thought should have won but didn't?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, when we, sort of pulled together, okay, everybody come up with a couple or, like, 2 or 3 of these, knew exactly what ones I wanted and was just, like, in there right away. And, like, looking at both of these, just in prepping for today's show, was like, oh, wow, like, I managed to pick 2 entries that I think have very much the same spirit as what eventually won, but that I think do it better. So just to lead off, I think this might have been, like, one of my favorites of the selection season that I sort of knew wasn't going to win, just because it felt just outside of, like, what I generally think of as a Eurovision song. But, had my fingers crossed for it that at least would get to, like, a super final, was Ida Maria's Scandilove.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's play a clip of that.
Baby, baby, ooh, ooh, just like you should, baby, baby, you and I can wake up out of the neighborhood. Ow, 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 ow. Can you make love like a Scandinavian? Can you make love like a Scandinavian? All night, like a Scandinavian. Can you make love like a Scandinavian? Can you make love like a Scandinavian? All night, like a Scandinavian. I can be the fireman and you can be the pussycat stuck in a tree like a Scandinavian.
Which is just such a fun song.
So much fun. And the performance from the Norwegian final was so delightful.
Was just like the perfect accompaniment to it. And like, I'm familiar with Ida Maria from about 2008. They were trying to break her as like an indie rock artist on this side of the pond musically. And she had I think she got at least a little bit of a following because I think at least 2 of her albums came out over here. This felt like a little bit more pop, and it was a good combo of sort of, she has kind of a whole rocker chick feel, but this just giving it that little bit of a pop edge just like was like the cherry on top for me. And like, as I said, like this has sort of the same kind of fun spirit, kind of cheeky spirit as what Norway sent, Alexander Rybak.
Mm-hmm.
But I think partially I didn't expect it to go through because it would require editing before the final version. Like they like it would need at least a little bit of censorship. And like that's part of what I liked about it is that it's just a bunch of scenarios. Like it's all about sex. And it's just a bunch of scenarios. It's just like a bunch of fun roleplay scenarios. And just like the chorus of the song is, can you make love like a Scandinavian all night long? It's just, speaking as a Scandinavian, warms my heart.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like the performance of it, watching it, and we'll have a clip to all of these entries, performances in the show notes. Well, part of it was like, I think she wasn't 100% sure where she was. Like there was just something she seemed very disoriented during the performance. There was one part where I think she tripped, and that may have like legitimately like kind of
and just rolled with it. Yeah. But yeah, like I just love that it just started in the middle of the audience and she like body surfed the stage. And
yeah, and just kind of like wandered around for a little bit. But like at the same time, it really kind of served the song well. Like it just kind of was delivered in this husky, oh, I went home with you, whatever.
Yeah,
just going on
got
with
this
that
kind of like husky alto, and then like just all of a sudden there were just cheerleaders just doing cheerleading stuff as well in like the Norwegian colors, just in red and white. It was just, again, just delightful. It just makes me happy thinking about it.
Yeah, and like it kind of looked like a Target ad, particularly the suit she was wearing with just all of these like white and red circles on it, and then there were like beach balls flying around. It was like just so delightful, and like I was not surprised that she didn't make it to the super final, but I was still kind of like, oh, come on, Norway, like have a little more fun.
Well, yeah, it's like as soon as Norway songs come out, that's the one that made it to my standard playlist in Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
And like, again, like I every time I listen to it, I'm like, there's no way this is going to get to the final.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I enjoy it so much.
And I was also really hoping that 2018 would be the first year that Biatch would be on the Eurovision stage. But
Yes.
we'll just have to wait until 2019, I suppose. So.
I just love that the whole thing is like, swim in the ocean, feel the emotion. It's freezing because we're in Norway.
Yeah.
Because you're in Scandinavia, biatch.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just so much to love in this song. Highly recommend seeking out the performance. And for the same reason you mentioned, Mike, because it seems like she's kind of out of it, but in a way where I almost want to say that she knows that she's kind of out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I don't think you could do that kind of performance, like, completely incapacitated seems like a strong word, but yeah, like...
But she's going for that kind of rocker chick, I don't care, insouciance, and it just works.
Yes.
Anyways, I've gushed about this one enough. So moving to a more somber number, but similar to how I picked a song from Norway that felt very goofy and fun, Iceland this year decided that they wanted to do a ballad, which is cool. The contest, always has some of those, and Iceland is actually, when they've sent those, has sent some pretty decent ones. I think in 2009, when Alexander Rybak won, like, they were number 2, and they had a pretty decent one.
Mm-hmm.
So this year, they picked a very nice kind of smarmy ballad about how it's our choice, it's our time, just sort of lots of bland beige platitudes that are okay. And like, when it came down to that one and what I submitted here, I was like, okay, cool. I get what they're going for, but I still thought the one in Icelandic should have won. So this is Stormi.
Í stormi stundum til mig Okkar hjörtu slá í takt Dimma tekur Borðina til lífi Í stormi stundum til mig Okkar hjörtu slá í takt Dimma tekur Nafn sársök í næðinum sá Til stað í huganum
Okay, so Mike, what did you think of this one?
Iceland's whole field just seemed kind of, I don't know, there weren't a lot of ones to latch onto. Like, the one that I think was earwormiest was Gold Digger, which I can totally understand why people would not be on board with that one, but Song Vikeppen, I think is the name of their process.
Yes.
They released the full album on Spotify, which has both the Icelandic version and the English version of all of the songs. And they also included karaoke versions, so there were like 45 tracks or something that were available on Spotify. And yeah, I mean, like, of the ballady songs, I think this one was, I think, the most accessible without being too Eurovision-y.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
but it's still pretty Eurovision-y.
It's still pretty Eurovision-y. Like, there's still a really nice sense of drama to it. And, like, the guy's voice is so good on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it's one of those tracks that, like, just comparing the recorded version to the live version was even better.
It has kind of like a glam rock vibe, sort of. I don't know.
Well,
yeah.
For me, it had like sort of a similar vibe to what Denmark ended up sending this year. In that it felt very dramatic, very sort of Game of Thrones fantasy epic-y.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if this will be one that will be staying on my Spotify after this year. Yeah, I guess I don't really have a strong opinion about it either way. But
the Icelandic field this year had like a few songs. But a lot of it was just sort of like, okay, this is nice. This is nice, but like it's not really a winner to me. But yeah, like I really dug this one and thought that it hit all the notes that the entry they ended up sending is trying to hit, and just feels sort of just smarmy and expected. But this one had some real drama to it, and I'm kind of sad that it's the one that ended up in second place. So what are you bringing to the table, Mike?
So I have 3 songs that I'm bringing that are of varying quality. Not to get too spoilery, but yeah. So the first one comes from Latvia's selection, and Latvia really changed up their process in the last few years, adopting the supernova format, and the sort of songs that have been coming out of that process are much more my jam. Like I used to have a pretty antagonistic relationship with Latvia. Like some of their entries, like from like 5 years ago, were just so trying too hard, but not in the right way.
I was about to describe them as like earnest, but in a bad way.
Yeah. And it's just just totally inaccessible. And it's like, oh man, they just have to do something. And like, I would actively hate their songs. It wouldn't just be a case of just like, oh yeah, I don't really like this one. It's just like, oh no, I hate this song, and I will be angry if it gets more than absolute last place. Since they've adopted the Supernova format, it feels kind of more like college radio type music.
They definitely have sort of a more indie alternative take on pop than some of the other nations do.
Yeah, and just a much more accessible song style. And they're really producing stuff that I'm not seeing from a lot of the other countries. So I don't know if they're just working more closely with the actual Latvian music scene or what's going on. But when they release the Supernova entries, like that's one of the sets that I'm most eager to listen to, just because it's just like, oh, this is stuff that would most likely end up in my Spotify recommendations anyway. And the one from this year that caught my ear instantly was Sunset by the group In My Head.
I'm going through the night alone to fight. I'm running through the dust to make you believe. I can trust myself. I can run through the sunset. You can rush to find me this time.
I'm not surprised that this one didn't advance out of the semifinals in the Supernova process. It was a little sparse. This particular performance wasn't all that dynamic, but the style of song just kind of reminds me of this concert that I went to after my senior year of high school, Area 1, where it was Moby and a bunch of up-and-coming acts that specialize in using turntables in their instrumentation. So it was like a festival with Outkast and The Roots and Incubus and Nelly Furtado. And it's just like, wow, this is a really good lineup. And this was right before they all hit it big. And there was like a soundtrack album that you could get if you bought a t-shirt at the concert, which I did. And this song felt right at home with that soundtrack CD. It's like, this song is just total mic nip. And yeah, and it also kind of reminded me of Lithuania's entry from last year, Reign of Revolution, which did not do well in the contest, but has really grown on me since last May.
Hearing this for myself, that also came to mind as a touch point was Lithuania's entry last year. Although, unlike you, that had negative connotations for me in that I thought that they had... Lithuania last year, I thought they had a little, way too much going on at once. And I felt similarly about this entry from Latvia, where I was just like, okay, I get what they're going for, but these elements aren't working together for me.
Yeah. I think as an audio track, it's, I don't know, it really kind of allows you to kind of zone into your work, which I think is also probably why I enjoy it so much, because that's when I mostly listen to Spotify, is when I'm at typing out stuff at work, and it's just like, oh, this is just getting me into that zone. But the visual performance of it is just they're okay. So
yeah, the visual performance was a little bit static.
Yeah, I'm hoping Latvia sticks with the Supernova format. They were successful with the first 2 years of it. Last year, they kind of ran into a stumbling block, but I think that's just because they were sending something that Eurovision wasn't ready for.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I think that their process in the last few years has improved by leaps and bounds, and it seems to be turning out some entries that both did do reasonably well in the contest and just generally produce some really, really interesting tracks.
Another one that I wanted to bring to the table that I know that, Ben, you had mentioned it before, was the song Lelya from Ukraine. The singer's name is Tiana.
Yes.
Let's take a listen to that track.
А що ж ти, Леля, наробила? Кому серце своє відкрила? А так себе не шанувала. Любов то є велика сила. Ей! Леля, Леля, налила півморя сліз. Налила півморя сліз. Бо закохалася. Леля, Леля, налила півморя сліз. Налила півморя сліз. Бо закохалася. Не в того, кого треба.
This is kind of par for the course for Ukraine in terms of woman with very strong vocals and a very pop-friendly song, and I am here for it. So.
Like, Ukraine sends one of those every few years, and it does very well.
I can understand why this did very well in the selection process, but I'm kind of glad that Ukraine went a different direction, just because, like you said, this is something that Ukraine has sent several times before, and it was just like, oh, well, let's just try something different by sending Melvin.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, yeah, and like this was like the first time I'd watched like the actual visuals that went with this, and like this was like actually a really, really well produced number.
Mm-hmm.
Had sort of like, I mean, the backup singers made this feel like very Motown.
Yes,
and like, but yeah, like it felt retro in a good way. It had like a lot of energy. I definitely could have seen this one just as easily taking it and doing, you know, and being a good entry for Ukraine.
Yeah, and I think it's also a lot of fun, which the last few entries from Ukraine
have been very heavy. I think we talked in the past show about like Ukraine as a host just trying to be, look, we have fun, and like it feeling kind of opposite to what was actually being shown, but this like actually felt very fun.
Yeah, this one is going to be one that will probably be staying in my Spotify for a while, and I'm actually probably going to see what else Teyana has, if it's available on Spotify, just because like I really like the sound of her voice.
Well, yeah, and like that's sort of a cool thing that happens when you watch stuff like this, is that all of a sudden it's like, oh, I should see if this person has anything else.
Yeah, I think that this will lead to some fun exploration as well as more random recommendations from Spotify. Just being like, oh, how about these Ukrainian artists? And it's like, okay, sure. And then the last one that I wanted to bring comes from Armenia. So Armenia this year is sending the ballad Kami. This song is the opposite of that. It's Puerto Rico by drag performer Camille's Show. Let's take a listen to that.
Es que cuando salen de fiesta conmigo, se me acercan los morenos de Puerto Rico. Llévame a la luna.
Por el amor y la pasión, siente la emoción y olvídate de la razón.
1, 2, 3, alajá. Baby, llévame contigo, contigo Puerto Rico, que nos dé solecito, mi chico, muy rico, sentados en la arena, mirando hacia la luna.
Okay, so this performance is... I don't even know how to describe
Yeah,
it. Ben,
like-
do you have words?
I can try. My initial reaction, like as the song was sort of warming up, was, you know, like, so Camille, I think, had their back turned to the stage, and it was mostly just their backing singers doing the song, and I was like, well, this is an interesting staging setup. Usually the main artist is in the center of the stage. Why is the camera focusing on these people on the side? Oh, that's why. And then the rest of the song started, and then I sort of sat there at my computer with my mouth agape, and then at the end of the video, I wondered if I needed to be sent to like cultural sensitivity training. Because I'm like, and admittedly part of this is just like not understanding the language, but I was trying to figure out like, is this being reverent of Puerto Rico or irreverent of Puerto Rico, or what is going on here? Everything is so bright and shiny.
Yeah, like, well, I didn't realize that Armenia had a drag scene, which I'm so glad that they do. And there was so much going on in this performance. Like, when we talked about Armenia originally, after Kami was selected, Ryan mentioned that the sort of sparseness of the stage performance was kind of a downside to that song. And it's like, oh, well, I think part of that was just because of like what the production style is for the Debbie of Retzel format. But then I saw this performance and be like, oh, yeah, I was mistaken, because there were like all of these kind of weird animations involving like trees and food in the background.
Oh yeah, like
and
they made use of all of the elements they had available.
Yeah.
Whether that is
then,
a good thing or not.
Yeah, and then like elements that they brought in from home, like using a frying pan as a mirror.
Yeah,
and
Frank
then,
has
like,
a mirror, using an oven as like a DJ deck.
Yeah, like it was just kind of all over the place, but in a really delightful way. And there was just this like boundless energy happening during
nice,
this performance.
It's nice to have something that just kind of locks your brain up for 3 minutes, where you're just like, I don't know what this is, but that's okay.
Part of me was just like, oh, I wonder why Armenia didn't choose this. And it's like, oh, it's because Armenia likes to win at Eurovision, or at least move toward that
Armenia is
direction.
not yet ready for their dust in the turkey phase.
Right.
which is what this reminded me of in ways. And again, I think that's mostly just the shininess and my inability to tell if this is making fun of something or not.
Right. Yeah. And like looking at the voting results on Armenia's Wikipedia page for this finished second in the audience vote. Kami finished first with like more than twice the votes that Puerto Rico had. So I don't know if that's really the best measure of second place. And then it was, I believe, second to last with the jury. So a mixed reception.
That makes sense to me. This very much feels like an entry that has a lot of audience appeal and that judges are going to look at on a musical level and go, no.
An unequivocal no.
Yeah.
And it was an international jury too, which made it all the more
which means that
noteworthy.
multiple nations were like, well, although it came second to last, so they did recognize that, okay, this part does have some musical credibility, but the rest of this we're not sure of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was the visual presentation plus one of the backing singers, the one playing the guitar, really kind of reminded me of the Robert Palmer Girls. So
yeah, I had that same feeling of, oh, okay.
Definitely a fun performance. Not at all surprised that it did not advance, but definitely one to check out.
Oh yeah, it's definitely worth the 3 minutes of your time it takes to watch this.
Yeah, so I guess we are officially done with selection season. We still have our Spotify playlist of the selection season songs we could find, and that'll be on our homepage for a little while longer at eurowhat.com. And we'll also have a link to that in our show notes, so you can subscribe to it and listen to it 2 or 3 years from now and be like, "What is this?
Yeah. Why did I save this in my Spotify playlists?"
Yeah, it's just like, why is this ruined my algorithm? I don't understand. And I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. It's kind of a short and sweet episode.
We will be back in full force next week as we start breaking down what these semifinals are going to look like.
That'll do it for this episode of the Euro What. Thanks for listening. The Euro What podcast is a production of WhatElseIsOn.tv. Our Eurovision News and Research Division specialists are Ryan Brazel, Mike McComb, and Ben Smith. Follow our coverage of the 2018 Eurovision Song Contest at our website, eurovision.whatelsison.tv. You can also catch us on social media at EuroWhat on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you'd like to contact us by email, we can be reached at esc@whatelsison.tv. We'd love to hear your questions and comments. You can subscribe to the Euro What on iTunes and Google Play. While you add the subscription, leave us a review and let us know how we're doing. We'll be back with more Eurovision updates next week.